What's up, everyone? It's your boy NornRad89 here, bringing you another video today, and it's a ranking video today. We're going to be ranking my top 10 body horror films of all time. Body horror films are typically films that stretch the imagination in terms of very original concepts, some crazy practical effects, just all that kind of stuff you're going to find in terms of body horror. And it does stretch different genres, thriller, sci-fi, all that kind of stuff is incorporated in this genre, in the subgenre of horror. So today you're going to find out my top 10 favorites, and what that means is this is just my opinion, my list, and I would love to hear from all of you in the comments section. So let's get down to this list. Roll it. Body horror is one of my favorite subgenres of horror, and today you're going to find out my 10 favorites to watch for this spooky season of October. And number 10 is going to be H.P. Lovecraft's ReAnimator, and man, this film is pretty unique and pretty amazing, and I like it because it's famously known in terms of the horror community, and Jeffrey Combs is amazing in this film. If you're not familiar with this movie, it's about a medical student who has basically the potion to reanimate life, after death. So it has plays on being possibly, a zombie film. You could kind of classify this as a zombie movie, but I definitely prefer this as more of a body horror film because of all the cool imagery, the amazing practical effects. We even got a pretty infamous scene in this film that's pretty naughty. So yeah, this film is wild, it's out there, and like I said, the performance by Jeffrey Combs, he just goes out there as this character, and I love that of this film. And H.P. Lovecraft, when you go into these movies, you could always see there's kind of like this underlying dark satire humor in those horror films, you know what I mean? And it's like really cool. This film is one of those movies that has a really good dark comedy layer to it, and that adds to the horror element. And yeah, this is a film that is quite an enjoyable ride for sure. Next up at number 9, we have Brian Yuzna's Society, and this is a 90s body horror film, and this film is wild. It's out there, and it's a very basic, simple concept, as the higher up society is literally feeding off of the lower members of society, and that's what it comes into play. But there's some wild body horror imagery in this film, especially when we get into that third act. There's some great, amazing practical effects in this movie. It's some stuff you're gonna have to stomach. It's very weird. Like, it's very hard to explain. Like, I can't even talk about it on this channel without getting like demonetized or anything like that. But yeah, the third act, if you could commit and like pay off, it's wild. It goes crazy, and like I said, the practical effects are the bomb. And another thing with this film is similar to ReAnimator. There's a nice dark satire layer of comedy in this film, and I didn't expect that. The first time I watched it, I thought this was going to be a very serious, kind of film talking about, societal issues and stuff like that, but having horror elements in it. But yeah, there's a good dark comedy layer in this film, and it lands some really good acting too as well. So yeah, Society, top notch, one of Brian Yuzna's best, easily, or probably, like I said, his best, I think, in my opinion. Sits here comfortable at this number 9 spot. Number 8, we have Brandon Cronenberg's Antiviral, and this is a film that I recently did catch not too long ago, and man, this film is out there for sure. And like in terms of like obsession and celebrities and stuff like that, that's really the kind of the center of this movie, like the core of it. But I like the fact that we deal with, being so obsessed now in the future in this, where it takes place, that we're sharing viruses that are grown or harbored in like the bodies of celebrities, and like people pay money to have like non-contagious versions of those viruses injected into themselves. Like, it's out there, and Caleb Landry Jones does such a fantastic job in the lead role, man. He just captures you in this film, like, for real. His character is so interesting, and every scene he's in, it's like, and he carries this movie for sure, really does. And the practical effects are dope as well. And Brandon Cronenberg's one of those directors, you can tell, like, he has a good eye for filming, and the apple didn't fall far from the tree, because he is the son of David Cronenberg, his father, a very famous body horror expert as well. So yeah, I'm eager to see what else Brandon Cronenberg has to offer. Speaking of David Cronenberg, coming in at number 7, we have David Cronenberg's The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum, and this is the remake, and probably one of the greatest remakes of all time. And Jeff Goldblum, the performance in this film is probably easily easily in the top 3 of performance that he's ever had in his career. And man, yeah, The Fly, when you watch this movie, and I believe Gina Davis, I believe, is the actress with him, it's just their love and the way it plays out in this movie. And it's such a it's like a tragedy too. Like, that's what I like about this film, is The Fly is a tragic kind of love story, almost like a Shakespearean type, play. But it's just, oh man, the way David Cronenberg expertly directs this film, and the pacing, and by the time you get to that third act, man, the special effects and what happens to Jeff Goldblum, it's just like, it's grotesque. Like, oh my God, like, this film really does push the limits. And this is one that I said, this is a sci-fi mixed with body horror. And that's what I love about body horror. We have, ones that are like stuff speaking on society. We have a zombie type body horror film on here. We have this one that's a science fiction type body horror film about a scientist who creates a time traveling machine, and a fly actually ends up getting in the machine, and his DNA is infused with the fly's DNA. So, you know what I mean? Body horror, there's so much to love about it, because there's so many original different concepts, and like, it stretches the landscape of so many other different genres in filming. And yeah, David Cronenberg's The Fly is an expert film. Like, this is like an expert class in just body horror films, and in terms of storytelling and like tragedy, it's really potent. Like, the first time I saw this film, I did cry. I got really upset. The first time I saw this film, I cried, because we got to that third act, and you kind of know where it's going, but it's like, dang. And even The Fly 2, that second one, there's a scene in that one too that made me upset. But I saw these at a really young age. I was probably like 10 or 11 when I saw these movies. But yeah, David Cronenberg's The Fly sits very comfortable here at this number 7 spot. Now we have another David Cronenberg film coming in at number 6, and this is actually my favorite film of his, and this might be a hot take because I don't see many people talk about this one, and it's Shivers from 1975, and I think this movie is badass. David Cronenberg, so raw in his early career, and I really like that. A lot of directors, I find a fascination in their early career and their early films, and even though they might not be the best edited or best production design, I like the more raw storytelling and creative nature to see what the director is able to do with less money. So I guess that's why I like the early stuff by a lot of directors, and David Cronenberg's Shivers is an amazing film that I highly recommend a lot of people go check out, especially if you haven't revisited it in a while. It's got a lot of sexual stuff in it, that might be why a lot of people don't revisit this one a lot, but it's a story about a nice hotel complex in this like kind of island area, and the doctor and his nurse, who's his on and off girlfriend, and they discover there's a parasite loose in their like nice condominium hotel place that's on this island, and they're the doctors that kind of take care of everybody, because this place has its own grocery store, its own doctors, everything like that, its own veterinary place. It's a very safe location, but it's all, secluded. There's no help from the outside area. You really have to go a long way to go get some help. So that's what kind of sucks when stuff starts to go down and parasites are taking over people and they're attacking. And what the parasite does is take people down to their very basic nature and needs of being like, hungry, or, wanting to have sex, or be very aggressive. Like, it takes you down to your very kind of basic primal nature, instead of having like thought processes between right and wrong and stuff like that. So yeah, Shivers is a great film for real. Like this one, Rabid is another good David Cronenberg film, and I know people talk highly about that one, and I do like Rabid too, but I think Shivers is a better executed film. Very similar, but I think Shivers is a better film. Now we're here at the top 5, and if you haven't yet, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And rolling in at number 5 is going to be The Void. And this is a more recent film. This one came out in 2016. And this film is how you can picture this one. I'm going to give you an example. It's like Hellraiser and John Carpenter's The Thing met and they had a baby. That's what this film would be for real. And like, the creature effects in this movie blew me away, man. It's a wild ride. It has to do with cults. It has to do with, creature designs, wild creatures from different dimensions, and like all kinds of stuff for real. This is a movie that has different layers, and the more I explain to it, it's not even going to help help you with the story. Like, for real, like, I can't even spoil anything because it won't even, you won't even understand it. You really have to watch this film and digest it yourself. And even though there's kind of an ambiguous, kind of left off ending in that third act, I didn't mind because the ride was so freaking fun. The acting is so good. It's so tense, and like, it really does have a John Carpenter's Thing feel with these people locked down in this hospital that's, the very limited staff because the hospital is being closed down and they're moving all the equipment to the new hospital. And oh man, what ensues when these people are trapped in this hospital is wild. And there's some dark imagery in this film. It's probably one of the grossest, most darkest tone and horrific scenes and stuff out of all the films that I've talked about so far. This is probably one of the top ones on there in terms of dark tone, because like I said, this one really goes for it. But yeah, I really had a great time. This was a fabulous ride, and especially that the production design, they had to stop production in this film like halfway through this movie and then pick up production. And like, sometimes when you have trouble production like that and you have to get funding and get new money to do the rest of your movie, it comes out like shit. And no, this movie is badass. Special effects, grade A. Story is a little wild out there. It's like a B, but the acting is A+. So yeah, The Void, highly recommend checking out this film. I believe it's currently streaming on Tubi for free. Now, rolling in at number 4, we have a recent film that I just reviewed on my channel the other day, Titane. Julia Ducournau, one of my favorite new French directors, and man, what she did with Titane was fabulous. I already went on and on about this film. I already did a review on it, so you can kind of check down. I'll probably have a link in the description if you want to check out that review. And man, like I said, totally deserves this number 4 spot. Like I said, I watched this film 3 times in 2 days when I first watched it. That's how excited I was about it. And like, oh man, for real, it highly deserves being on here because I think it's such a beautiful story at the center of it and at the core of it. And I like how body horror films are able to do that. Like, there's horrific graphic imagery in this movie in terms of murders, in terms of like a crazy like transformation that goes down with her, like when she's, like, oh, I don't even want to explain it because I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, what goes down in that third act, yeah, it's wild. And it's totally worth the ride. And it's such a style over substance film, as I said in my review, but the substance does marry with the style and complement it in such a great way. So Titane highly deserves this number 4 spot on my list. Coming in at number 3, we have Brendan Cronenberg, Possessor. And this right here, Possessor, is one of my favorite films that I've seen in the last 3 years. Like, it just is. Like, it just is. Like, I've seen so many films in the last 3 years, but Possessor is one of my favorites. What Brendan Cronenberg was able to do with this film just blew me away. It's one of the most original concepts to something that we've seen done before, but he adds such a new layer to it as we follow a woman who works for an organization that they basically carry out hits, very expensive hits. Like, people pay money to have them do assassinations, but what they're able to do is go into the consciousness of somebody else, and she learns their mannerisms and is able to speak like them because she's in their body, but takes over that person's body and is able to carry out the assassination. And oh man, this film, the music, the style, the way it looks, the acting, like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, Possessor is so good. It even has some crazy dream sequence moments because she, as a person, when you're doing that and you're in someone else's body like that and living their life, you kind of lose your grip on reality and who you are. And like, the actress, she plays it so well, for real. Possessor is, like I said, easily one of my favorite films that I've seen in the last 3 years. It's so good. Highly recommend it. It's currently streaming on Hulu, and like I said, I'm excited. That's why I'm so excited about Brendan Cronenberg, because I love David Cronenberg, but the fact that I have his son's film above some of his films on this list, I'm like, damn, like, I can't wait to see what his son does in the future. So yeah, Possessor highly and comfortably sits here at this number 3 spot. Now we're here at the top 2, and if you know me at all, you probably know what these top 2 are gonna be, but let's get right into it. And number 2 is gonna be Clive Barker's Hellraiser, the pinnacle of special effects. These top 2 films are both the peak and pinnacle of special effects in the 80s And Clive Barker's Hellraiser is such an amazing film that tackles obsession. And oh man, that's what I love about it, is it's really about love and obsession and what it can do to you. And like, that's what's amazing, is like that's just the core center of it. But add in amazing special effects, add in Doug Bradley's performance as Pinhead, who Doug Bradley has a famous background in theater acting, and you can see that when he does his long monologues and soliloquies, it blows you away, because the way he speaks, the way he delivers his lines, like it really does. It's such a fascinating movie. And Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty, one of my favorite final girls in any film, of a horror film ever. And man, like for real, Clive Barker's Hellraiser is one of those movies that, and it's such a good ride too. It's like a fast-paced movie. Like when you take this movie and take this ride, it just takes you for it. And the acting is so gripping. And from all the characters, Julia, Frank, like they're all of them are gripping in a different kind of way. And like I said, the pinnacle of special effects in the 80s. Like when I first saw this film, it blew me away. I had to go to the video store and just rent the second one, rent the third one. The fourth one's not here this week. Well, next week I'm coming back to see if they got the fourth one. Like, you know what I mean? That's how it was when I first saw Clive Barker's Hellraiser. It was like, go to the local video store, Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, and try to find the other ones so we can digest this whole series, because I have to have more Pinhead in my life. So yeah, Pinhead, number 2, coming in at this second spot, but there has to be a top dog, a number 1. And if you know me at all, let me get this out right here. McCready right here, John Carpenter's The Thing. And we'll set this bad boy right here as we talk about it. McCready could join us. He could join us for this conversation right here, because we love this film. John Carpenter's The Thing is another movie like Clive Barker's Hellraiser, the pinnacle and peak of special effects and practical effects in the 80s. And that's what I really love about these films, is they push the limits in terms of content, of story, in terms of what they ask of their actors and their special effects designers. Like, body horror films really push the limits and ask a lot of their creators, and the people are willing to sacrifice and go out there and make these really rare, really rough movies that not a lot of people are going to digest. Not a lot of people are going to love these movies. When John Carpenter's Thing came out in the theaters, this was shitted on. People talked crap about this movie, and now it's heralded as one of the greatest films of all time. And it is. It's easily one of the greatest horror films of all time, but it's in my top 20 greatest films of all time as well. John Carpenter's The Thing is such an expert way of diving into tension and just wrenching up the tension and really keeping you enthralled with characters and creating a situation that makes you feel on edge. You feel unsafe in this movie and while you're watching it. And the fact that they're dealing with a shape-shifting alien that can look like any of them, and that's what takes away from it, is like, you're like, damn, this is really scary, the concept in of itself. And that's why I like body horror, taking more elements from science fiction, you know what I mean, borrowing from aliens, a very unknown concept of we have no idea what's out there and we're afraid of what's out there. And John Carpenter really did. And this is a remake too, a Thing remake, and one of the greatest. Like The Thing and The Fly, some of the best remakes of all time in body horror films, easy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this top 10 list of my favorite body horror films. There's really not much else to say about this film, because it's just glorious. It's amazing. If you haven't seen John Carpenter's The Thing, turn off this freaking video and go watch it. What are you doing here? But thank you for sticking around with me for this top 10 video of my favorite body horror films. And let me know in the comment section what are some of your favorites. And don't forget to like and subscribe. But most importantly, have a safe and happy day, everyone. Peace out.